Sup people, this is Avik from Avik Sacco World, and today we are going to talk about heaters versus thermostats. So we can all feel the nip in the air and we know that winter is coming. Not in the same way that the season 8 came, but I guess a little better than that. So we do need to prepare ourselves, brace ourselves for the winter and get thermostats and heaters, and it's one of the most trending aquarium accessories being sold right now. But what is the difference? We usually come across both terms, use them interchangeably, but are they the same product? Or can we use either of them or both of them, or like how do we use them and stuff like that? So we'll focus on the basic differences between the two and similarities and differences, just to give you the idea of what you actually need and would want in your aquarium. And over here I have the second smallest tank that I keep. It has a lot of mollies in it, guppy grass, Java and Singapore mosses, Mario ball, stuff like that. And yeah, I'm not just about monster fishes, and I do not feed these mollies to my monster fishes. Okay, so what are thermostats or heaters, or why do we need them? Most of us keep tropical fishes, exotic or not, but they belong to the tropical and subtropical areas. Now, the major issue with fish keeping in an enclosed environment is we cannot mimic change in weather naturally, obviously, for obvious reasons. So we need to make sure that the fishes do not get stressed out or get diseases because we are unable to give them an optimal setup. Let's take for example us. Most of us do catch a cold or feel under the weather when there's a sudden seasonal change. Like summers to monsoons, or then back to summer again, and then we spike up to a winter day or something. So we do catch cold, fever and stuff like that. So it's not just us humans, it's the same with plants, even with inanimate objects. Like think about heating up a piece of glass and then you cool it down, suddenly it cracks. Like most of the times it would crack. So the same thing goes for your fishes and plants in your aquarium, or any invertebrates for that matter. Every species or every type of specimen that you have in your aquarium will prefer a stable temperature throughout the year because of it being isolated in a small, it's a small setup. No matter how big your tank is, it's always a small setup compared to wild. So for that we usually use thermostats or heaters. Now, the two major differences between heaters and thermostats are heaters are almost not there anymore. Right? What we generally get nowadays are thermostats. Now, as the name suggests, heaters are used to heat up the water. Thermostats tend to give a static thermal temperature, or temperature in general, for your aquarium. So when we use heaters, we need to make sure that there's a thermometer present over there, and you keep monitoring the temperature of the water after you switch the heater on, and when it reaches the optimal state you need to manually switch it off, and then again if it goes down quite a bit you need to switch it back on again, and you need to manually operate a heater. But when we're using a thermostat, it usually comes with an auto cut feature. So you plug it in. You may or may not keep a thermometer depending on if you really want to see how the temperature of the thermostat really reflects on the water, because the low end or the mid range thermostats kind of do not give a real exact temperature as it's marked on the thermostat. So suppose we have around 26 degrees on the thermostat set. The water temperature could be close to 3 or 4 degrees above or below that mark. So it's always better to keep a thermometer stuck onto the glass, or else you can go for the really high-end ones which are like amazingly precise. I would not like to name brands over here, but you know, like most of you guys do know about those, or you can just like read blogs and forums about those. So when we place a thermostat, it heats up the water as per the desired setting, and then automatically cuts off when the temperature is reached, and then once the water starts cooling down again, it again switches back on, and it keeps on doing this to keep the water temperature kind of stable. Please ensure that especially if you're using a glass thermostat, please ensure it's not above the water level. Now, the first example that I gave before starting off with the entire discussion was about glass. If you heat glass enough and then cool it out, suddenly it cracks. The same thing happens with thermostats, and we see a lot of instances where thermostats have exploded. That's not because they have actually exploded, but because there was a drastic drop in temperature, or supposedly it was out of the water while it was still running, and it, like half of it is out the water and the rest is in it. So there was a extreme difference in temperature within the thermostat itself, and it cracked or burst open. So please make sure that the thermostat is submerged completely in the tank. When you're doing a water change, please switch off the thermostat an hour before the water change. Now, it would be very hard for most hobbyists to match the temperature of the water that he or she gonna pour in the tank with the existing tank temperature, because that's pretty warm because of the thermostat. So when you shut down the thermostat in an aquarium, the temperature drops down to a mid-range closer to the room temperature, while it's going to be easier to increase the temperature of the new water or keep it the same and let the aquarium cool down to the room temperature so that they're both at the same temperature, and then go ahead and replace the do the water change and then switch it back on again, like quickly. This way the fishes do not undergo a huge change in water temperature suddenly. They gradually acclimatize to cooling down, and then when the thermostat is switched back on, it's going to increase the temperature gradually. So it's not a sudden change, and that will prevent a lot of stress in the fish. Diseases, white spot diseases or ache is very common when it's about temperature fluctuations in water. So please ensure you follow these steps while doing a water change, or while even placing a thermostat, and it's gonna work wonders. Okay, so that was it. That was my take on thermostats versus heaters. I definitely prefer thermostats any day over heaters. And also I would actually prefer metal thermostats over glass thermostats, because they're much harder and they do not break as quickly as glass ones. They might tend to be a little more expensive than glass, but then in the long run it does pay off, right? So please get your aquariums all well equipped, set them up right, because winter is right around the corner, and we definitely don't want our beloved fishes or plants or invertebrates or like family members to actually suffer because you didn't want to put in one extra equipment in there, right? See you guys in the next video.